2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4 and 5 provides us with 3 steps we'll need to take to see victory in every area of our lives. So let's read this scripture and see what it says. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God, pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So you've got 3 things listed here which are necessary for you to see victory in your life. And God has provided a way, has provided you with the first step. So the first step you're going to take is receiving what God has provided. And then in the second step, you're going to activate what God has provided. And then in the third step, you'll be able to perpetuate victory, to create a legacy in your life. So what has God provided that we've got to receive in these scriptures? We're seeing it says here the weapons. So before you start celebrating victory, before you start thinking of how powerful God is, He's provided you with the weapons. So the first step is for you to receive them, to receive those weapons. Do you know what those weapons are? Have you seen a list of them? Can you name at least 10 of weapons that have been provided for us? What do they look like? So in the first step, before you get anywhere in the second step, the first step, you need to receive the weapons that God has provided. And they are listed throughout the scriptures. You can go out and look for them. You can study the scriptures, you can meditate the scriptures, and you can pick up all the weapons that you need. For example, the armor of God is listed in Ephesians chapter 6. You can go there and you will discover the sword of the Spirit. You will discover power of prayer, shield of faith, helmet of salvation. So you need to go through scriptures and discover the weapons that God has provided. And that is the first step, the weapons. And what is the second step? Second step is the battle. So you're going to activate those weapons in the battle. You're not going to stay with them at home, because a lot of us can easily celebrate the weapons. You see them mentioned always in churches, people shouting of those weapons as if they are something, but until you bring them to the battle, they are not useful. So the second step is for you to choose to enter the battle with those weapons. Because until you bring those weapons to the battle, you will not see victory. You're going to choose to enter the battle. You're going to choose to know, invest in the knowledge of what it is. That's the battle, really. Because this scripture is talking about the element, the characteristics of that battle. So the second step is for you to discover that you are in a battle. What is that battle? It's talking about the mind, captivity. You're held captive. You could be held captive in your mind. What is the battlefield? So you need to know the battle. You need to know the battlefield. You need to know what does that battle look like. That's the second step. You need to know the battle. What is the battle? Characteristics of that battle. And you need to enter that battle. And once you have done all of that, then you'll be able to enter the last step. You learn to take victory home, because people can have the weapons, they can fight the battle, but they do not know what victory look like. What's a victory to you? What does it look like? Is it a relationship with God? Is it a wife and a spouse and 4 kids? Is it a car or joy and peace? You need to know what victory look like, because you cannot have weapons, start a battle if you do not know what victory look like. You're starting the battle knowing the beginning from the end. You should know what the promised land is before you start the battle, before you start the journey, before you go for those weapons and go to the battle. You should know what victory look like. So the first step is you know the weapons. Weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God. You know that God has not left you helpless. So your first step is to receive what God has provided. Then you can move to the next step, where you will activate those weapons. You know how to deploy them. You know how mighty they are through God. It's not your own battle. We are fighting through God. You know how to cast those imaginations down. Casting down every high thing. It says here, nothing's left. Every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Bringing every thought into captivity. Who is fighting the battle? It's you who is fighting the battle through God. Battle is in your mind. It says in this scripture. You need to know what victory look like. Knowledge of God. Knowledge of God is the victory. Knowledge of love is the victory. Knowledge of peace. Knowledge of grace, of joy. You need to know what victory look like. So is 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4 to verse 5. That's the scripture for today.